Welcome back to the Colorado Avalanche GM mode here on NHL 16. This is episode 7, and it is also the off-season episode. So, heading into this off-season, or finishing up the season, the Avalanche finished at 36, 36, and 10, which was last place, which is 7th in the Central Division, and 12th place in the Western Conference. So, that last month of the season, as you guys know, if you watched the last episode, Semyon Varlamov got hurt. He sprained his MCL, and he is our elite goaltender. So he got hurt. Even though he didn't really have the best of seasons, he's still an elite goaltender, and he got hurt, and we had to rely on an AHL guy and Rito Berra, so Calvin Pickard and Rito Berra, and it just did not work out. They could not perform very well, and we ended up dropping from that 8th seed all the way down to the last place in the Central and the 12th in the spot in the West. And let's take a look at some of the points leaders for the Avalanche. First of all, the points leader on the team was Gabriel Landeskog. He played in all 82 games, did not get injured, durability to the max, 34 games, 42 assists, 76 points, 82 games played in a 12th place in the Western Conference team. That is pretty good stats, if you ask me. Pretty much just a few points under a point per game player. I'll take those stats. Michael Bodker, 80 games played, 22 goals, 40 assists, that's 62 points. Matt Duchene, 82 games played, did not miss a game all season long, 23 goals, 38 assists, and 61 points. While Victor Rask, who was acquired in the Tyson Barrie trade, played in 76 games, 25 goals, 24 assists, 49 points. He was more of a lopsided player. He didn't really get any assists, and he was just sniping it all the time. So he was more of a lopsided guy and didn't really get too high of a point total. And he didn't really do too much for our Avalanche after having a really good portion of the season with the Hurricanes. Nathan MacKinnon had 70 games played with 22 goals, 23 assists, and 45 points. He missed a few games with a concussion, I believe it was, but 45 points in 70 games played is definitely not what you want from Nathan MacKinnon, especially a guy who has elite potential. And then flip things over to the goalie side of things, and Semyon Varlamov played in 54 games. He had a 2.830 goals against with a 23, 25, and 4 record and a .906 save percentage. Like I said, is not very good. That 2.830 goals against is almost 3 goals a game. Not good at all. The .906, definitely not an elite goaltender status save percentage. Rito Berra had a good save percentage, though. He had a .920 save percentage in 25 games played, a 2.420 goals against, and a .981 record. While Calvin Pickard, in 10 games being called up from the AHL, had a 3 goals against and a .904 save percentage and a .331 record. So he did not play well at all in the NHL. And now if we take the progression charts for this Avalanche and San Antonio Rampage team, the only guys who really got progression and they benefited, a couple guys got 2 upgraded points for their overall, a couple guys got 1. Duncan Siemens spent most of the season in AHL. In the AHL, he progressed a bit. Grigorenko progressed a bit, Brendan Gormley progressed a bit, Nathan MacKinnon, Matt Duchene, and Zadorov all progressed a bit as well. And before we move on to anything else in the offseason, let's talk about the playoffs. The Stanley Cup playoffs. In the West, the 1 seed was the Predators, and the matchups in the first round was Dallas and Blues. And then we had Nashville and Winnipeg, Los Angeles and Calgary, and then Anaheim and San Jose, which is a good rivalry. And in the East, their 1 seed was the Lightning, and their matchups were the Penguins and the Hurricanes, the Rangers and the Maple Leafs, the Panthers and the Senators, the Lightning and the Canadiens, which is a rematch of last year's one of their playoff matchups. And starting off things in the West, which is our conference, obviously, the top matchup was Dallas and St. Louis. Dallas won 4-1, and they went on to take on the Winnipeg Jets, who were the 8th seed and first rounded the 1 seed Predators. And then they also went on and beat the Dallas Stars in that next round to move on to the Western Conference Finals. And they faced a team from the other bracket, which was Ducks and Sharks. Sharks took that one 4-2. They moved on to face the Calgary Flames, who swept the Kings 4-0. And then it was Calgary and the Jets in the Western Conference, a matchup of the Western Canada teams. And the Calgary Flames took that in 7 games, 4-3. They moved on to the Stanley Cup. And in the East, we've got Carolina and Pittsburgh. Carolina took that 4 games to 2 as they took on the Rangers in the next round because they swept the Maple Leafs in the first round. And then they moved on, and then the Rangers beat the Hurricanes 4-3 in that round and moved on to the Eastern Conference Finals as they took on a team from the other bracket, which was Ottawa and Panthers, Ottawa and Florida. Ottawa won that 4-3 to take on the Lightning, who beat the Canadiens 4-2. The Lightning were the 1 seed, remember, and they moved on to face the Senators, and the Senators 4-1'd them. In 5 games, they move on. Senators, Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final, and the Rangers take that 4 games to 3. So the Stanley Cup is Rangers and Flames as they win 4 games to 1. New York Rangers finally get themselves a cup, and they can finally say that they have won a cup since, I believe, what was it? I don't remember what year. I think it was 93 was the year they won it. All I know is I hate Rangers fans because they like to brag about how they're the greatest team on the planet, and hockey wouldn't be where it is without them, but that's not the point of this video. I could make a 30-minute long video ranting about Rangers fans, but we're not going to do that. And the player awards for this season were pretty surprising, as Mike Ribeiro from the Predators, who apparently was the main reason this team was so good, came away with a bunch of trophies. Mike Ribeiro won the Art Ross, the Hart, he won the Lady Byng, and he took home the Ted Lindsay Trophy. He pretty much cleaned up the floor, what's the expression? I don't freaking know the expression. All I know is he took home a lot of trophies. Mike Ribeiro had a ridiculous season. He's not even that good of a player in the game. And then the James Norris was Drew Doughty. The Calder went to McDavid. Conn Smythe went to Lundqvist. Vezina went to Lundqvist. William N. Jennings went to Rene, Masterson went to Luke Shen, and the Selke went to Jordan Stahl, while the Maurice Richard Trophy, the Rocket, for the most goals in the NHL, went to Tyler Seguin. And now let's move on to one of the biggest things for rebuilding a team, and that is the NHL Draft. So, the Avalanche, heading into the draft, made a trade as they traded away Carl Soderberg as they received a trade offer from the Predators for him, as Carl Soderberg is like a 30-year-old center who, I mean, he's a decent center, but he's not anything special, and he's getting paid a lot of money when he has 5 years on his deal left, and I was not looking to have a 35-year-old or 36-year-old, whatever it would have been, Carl Soderberg on this team getting paid that much money, because he just wasn't that good, in my opinion, and I didn't feel like keeping him. So we ended up giving him off in this incoming trade offer from the Sabres for a third-round pick in the draft. So we would have an extra third-round pick, which is good, because we want to have that young talent stocked up. So, moving on to the draft, our first-round pick, which we had 22nd overall, which I believe was the Kings pick, because I know we traded our pick for Bodker. But the Kings pick, we got Michael Zip, who is a defenseman. He is turned out to be a top 6 defenseman potential. In the second round, the 8th overall pick, we got Cruz Rydberg, who's a center, bottom 6 potential. The second round, 21st pick, we got Poo, who's an Asian right wing, bottom 6 potential. Second round, 26th pick, we've got Suter from Switzerland, who's a center with bottom 6 potential. Third round, 4th overall, we got Takashev, left wing, bottom 6. Third round, 5th overall, very next pick, we got Hajek. I'm going to just say Hajek. He's a defenseman, 7th D potential. And then the rest of the rounds, we got Salatura, who's a center, left wing. We've got Funk, and then Nother, who's a defenseman. Golovkovs, who is a center. McBride is a goalie, and then Voinov is a center. And those were all rounded out. And none of these guys are really NHL ready. They're all going to be spending time in juniors to get themselves NHL ready. And then possibly next year, they'll spend time in the AHL. But as of right now, these guys are not NHL ready, and they're going to spend time in juniors. If you guys don't know how the drafting works in the NHL, is if you draft somebody, I don't know the exact rules to it, but I know that if you draft the guy and he's like under like 20 or something, he can't be in the AHL. So it's either he's on your NHL team or you still have control of him on your team, but he's in the juniors just progressing and playing down there, getting playing time. So that's what these guys are doing. They're still playing for their junior teams or overseas or whatever they're playing for, and they are not going to be on the NHL or AHL team. And now for the re-sign phase. The Avalanche had quite a few key pieces to re-sign, one of them being who we traded for in Michael Bodker, and we re-signed him for 3 years, so Michael Bodker returns to this team. Connor Bleakley, who's a 19-year-old young prospect who's going to spend time in the NHL this year, he's going to be on the opening night roster, who is 3 years, we re-upped him as well. Joey Hishin, who is we re-signed him to a 1-year deal, he's a former first-round pick, and he's also going to be spending time on the NHL roster to start off the year. Mikhail Grigorenko re-signed for 3 years. Victor Rask for 3 years as well. I figured, hey, if you're going to trade for the guy, why not re-sign him? That was the whole plan to begin with. Nathan MacKinnon, who, despite having a down season, it really progressed a bit, and he's still really young, and he has a really high potential. I believe it's elite. It might even be a franchise, and we re-upped him for 5 years. Dennis Everberg, I believe it's Dennis Everberg, who spent time in between the NHL and AHL, mainly as kind of like a depth forward guy. He's re-upped for 2 years. Siemens, who was probably the guy who progressed the most out of anybody this season, was re-upped for 2 years, a defenseman. Brandon Gormley was re-upped for 3 years. Cleach was re-upped for 1 year. Colin Smith for 2 years, and Agazino for 1 year. And then moving on to free agency, where we acquire new talent who are looking for teams. The big one we went out and got was we wanted a defenseman, because I felt like a huge problem we had last year was a defenseman. Large part of that was we traded away a lot of them, and our best defenseman is Eric Johnson. So I tried to improve that as much as I could, and we went out and got Keith Yandel. We gave him a 4-year, $5.5 million deal. So Keith Yandel is now a member of the Colorado Avalanche. He'll be with us till like his mid-30s or like early 30s, like 33, I think, around that age. Ryan Stanton is a young defenseman we went out and got. He is 2 years, $1.775 million. Like I said, young defenseman, wanted to improve the defense. He's going to help improve that, as he's probably going to get better with as he progresses as well. And then, also, I wanted to have a good backup goalie and not just be able to, if Varlamov goes down, we're going to have, an AHL guy and then, Rito Berra. So, instead, we're going to have our backup be Antti Ranta, is I believe how you say it, from the New York Rangers, who they did not re-sign, and now he is the backup of the Avalanche, so he'll be backing up Varlamov. And I believe I re-signed Berra. If I did, he's down in the AHL. And then, as a good face-off guy, because playing these games this season, I felt like one of our huge issues were we could not win face-offs. It just felt like all our centers weren't very good at face-offs, and Rich Peverly, even though the guy's retired in real life for good reason, he is a very good face-off man. And I just could not pass up on having that on the team. So, Rich Peverly was resigned for 2 years as a, two-way forward type player. A $1.7 million deal. Also, Ranta, I didn't mention, was re-signed for 2 years. We went and got another defenseman to up the defensive core in Yannick Weber. 2 years, $3 million. So, Yannick Weber, he'll be a member with us for the next 2 seasons. And then we also went out and kind of got a low-risk, high-reward type player in Alexander Semin, because we signed him to a 1-year, $900K deal. So he's not getting paid really any, and if I really just he's not performing well and I don't want him on the team, I could just move someone up a line and give some young guys a shot, and Semin can just go down the AHL, and if he gets claimed, he gets claimed because he's not performing well. And if he's in the AHL, he's in the AHL. Who really cares? So it's really a low-risk, low reward. He's still got an amazing shot, amazing offensive skills, so I figured, hey, if I put him on a line with some really skilled players, maybe he could perform with that shot. And now the last part of the off-season video, and that is going over what the lines are going to look like heading into this season 2. So the opening night lines for the Colorado Avalanche, our first line is Gabriel Landeskog, Matt Duchene, and Michael Bodker. These are, of course, going from left wing, center, and then right wing. Second line is Alexander Semin, Nathan MacKinnon, and then Mikhail Grigorenko. Third line, Joey Hishin, Victor Rask, and Blake Comeau. Or Comeau? I still don't know how to say the name. I need to look it up. I know. Fourth line, Connor Bleakley, Rich Peverly, and John Mitchell. Moving things over to the defensive pairings, as the top defensive pairing is the two studded guys of Erik Johnson and Keith Yandle. I figured I would start them off on a line together. If I feel like the defense is slacking, I might move some guys around and have Johnson anchor his line, and then Yandle anchor the second line, or Johnson is anchoring the second line and Yandle anchoring the first line, and just kind of have them anchoring their lines and have a young guy with them, or a veteran guy with them. We don't have any veteran guys, so have a young guy with them, being able to progress and stuff and just kind of spread them out instead of having them both in the line and then drop down if they don't perform well. So then the second line is Yannick Weber and Brandon Gormley from lefty to righty. Lefty-righty for the third line is Holden and then Zadorov. And then, of course, in between the pipes for this year's Colorado Avalanche team is Semyon Varlamov is our starter, and the backup is Antti Ranta from the New York Rangers, who was signed with us for a 2-year deal. And then we've also made some changes to the captains and assistant captains this year. The captain is still Gabriel Landeskog, but we got rid of, I believe Cody McLeod is down in AHL, so he's no longer an assistant captain for us. And we traded away Jerome McGinley. I never gave that other assistant captain spot to another person, so we gave it to Duchesne, who I felt was worthy because he's a really solid player. He's going to be a key part of this series. And Erik Johnson, who's a veteran defensive player. He's been with the Avalanche for quite some time, and he signed to a pretty long contract. So I figured, hey, let's give those guys the A's, and we'll have Gabriel Landeskog be our captain for many, many years to come. So with that being said, that'll pretty much wrap things up here for this Avalanche off-season video. We'll be heading into Season 2 now with the new revamped Avalanche team, and hopefully we can get something going with this team. I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I'm saying goodbye.
All the small